What's up, everybody? Let's talk today about parsing in TOGC as a Shadow Priest. Now, it's not the best raid for us, but it's definitely not the worst. So let's talk about what you can do to maximize your damage and hopefully help your guild along the way. So first of all, I want to talk about talents. Now, what I would recommend for the 4 bosses that we can actually parse on is just your normal talent setup. You do not need improved Vampiric Embrace. It does help if you're, progressing the raid, if you're getting your first few attempts in, but I would highly recommend not using improved Vampiric Embrace for a noob. It's going to be too much healing for your group, and you're going to be healing the boss way more than you need to. So this is all because of his Leeching Swarm, which sucks health from your current HP and heals a noob. So make sure that you're not using improved VE because you'll be griefing your raid if you do. Alright, well, our first boss is Northrend Beasts, and the first part of that is Gormak the Impaler. So now what I would recommend is not using a pre-pot on this fight. If you time it perfectly, you'll get about 3 or 4 seconds out of your pre-pot. Instead, what you can do is use a flame cap. Now, nothing on our character actually benefits from flame cap, but one thing that does is our shadowfiend. Now, for some reason, shadowfiend's a little bit weird, but it's going to take the highest spell power on your character sheet, which in this case would be fire damage, and it's going to get that applied to its stats, which means it's going to increase its attack power by that 80 extra spell power from flame cap. Now, is this a lot of DPS? No, this is actually very minimal and probably not going to be the difference between any placement of your parse. It's probably 5 DPS at absolute best, and even that seems like a lot. But we're talking about min-maxing your damage, and a pre-potion is just not worth using here. Now, this is a single target fight with some ad control. So now number 1 is if you get targeted by one of the snowballs, your parse is over and your damage is going to suck, and there's nothing you can really do about it. It's going to chain stun and interrupt you for probably 30 to 40 seconds because they do take quite a long time to die. Now, let's just assume that you don't get targeted by a snowball. What you want to do is obviously maintain all of your dots and single target Gormak. When the snowballs first spawn, you can actually see Gormak holding it above his head for a few seconds before he throws it out. You want to be able to double dot these before they get thrown out, so that's going to be a Vampiric Touch into a Shadowward Pain. Now, you want to dot these before they get thrown out because it's possible they might get thrown away from you, which means you won't be able to dot them until whoever it's attached to runs into melee range if that's what you're doing. If you dot them before he throws them, this allows you to get dots up earlier, you'll get more dot ticks, and then you just go back to single targeting Gormak until the snowball finally reaches melee and you can start attacking it again. Now you just want to refresh Vampiric Touch when it falls off and use a 2-tick Mind Flay when Shadowward Pain has around 4 to 5 seconds left. You don't want to wait too long because the timer for Shadowward Pain isn't accurate to when it falls off because it doesn't always fall off at 0. So just be careful that you don't wait too long to refresh it. So maintain both your dots on any snowballs that are up, use your single target on Gormak, and that's about it. After Gormak dies, there's going to be about 2 or 3 extra snowballs that spawn, so make sure you get VT up on all of them, you get a Devouring Plague up, and then Shadowward Pain is your last prio. After all of that's done, all of your dots are up on all of the targets, just single target them down, and you'll do a lot of damage, I promise you that. Next up, we have Acid Maw and Dreadscale. So now for this part, it's essentially the same as what we just did with just 2 ads that live a little bit longer. So we're going to be having our one main target, which we're going to keep all of our dots on, and it's going to be the one that we single target. And then we're going to have our off target that we maintain Shadowward Pain and Vampiric Touch on. So if you weren't good at multi-dotting, this is the perfect time to get better. So whichever one your guild is calling your kill target, make sure you're focusing all your single target into that. That's going to have way more debuffs on it, which means your spells are going to be hitting harder onto that Drumonger than the other one. So that's why we single target into our main target and maintain dots on the off target. Now, I would recommend making sure you use Dispersion when they burrow. As I mentioned earlier, Glyph of Shadowward Pain is going to do a lot of heavy lifting for your mana here, so you should never stop casting until you actually just can't cast on anything, which is during the burrow. That's the first time that's going to happen. Make sure that once they come up from burrow, you apply your dots immediately. If one of your Drumongers is about to die, then you probably don't even want to dot that, maybe just Vampiric Touch, depending on how much health it has. So make sure you're not wasting your global cooldowns by applying dots to a target that's going to die in a few seconds. Keep single targeting your other Drumonger, and then we can move on to Ice Howl. So Ice Hal has two things that you really want to watch out for when parsing here. Number one is make sure you stay spread. His Arctic Breath will target a player and freeze everybody in a cone around them, which means if you get frozen, that's 5 seconds where you can't DPS. Number two is just before he jumps into the middle for his massive crash ability, you want to make sure you reapply your dots because he's going to stun you for a few seconds. You want to make sure that you have full dots ticking on him before that stun happens. And I lied, there's actually 3 things. So the third thing is that after massive crash, when he takes 100% damage, you make sure that you get your dots back up. You don't need to reapply Shadow Word Pain if that's already on him. You'll probably need to reapply Vampiric Touch because that's falling off. You'll want to get up a new Devouring Plague because that'll then snapshot that at 100% damage. And then use your single target abilities. Make sure that you have Shadowfiend, make sure you have a second potion. And on your final global cooldown, before he loses that 100% increased damage taken, you reapply Devouring Plague. This is going to snapshot that 100% damage, and it will be applied for the entire duration of that Devouring Plague, even when that 100% damage buff falls off of Ice Hal. So it's just maintain your dots, reapply Devouring Plague, and you'll have really high DPS on this phase of the encounter. Alright, now we have Lord Jaraxxus, Eridar Lord of the Burning Legion. One day I'll be able to say that voice line correctly. Anyway, Lord J-Dog is very similar to Gormok in the Northrend Beasts encounter, so it's going to be a single target fight with some add cleave. Now it really depends on how long your adds live for. That's going to determine what kind of dots you put on them. So you always want to be maintaining all 3 of your dots on Lord Jaraxxus. But when the Nether portal spawns, depending how fast it dies, you might only want to put up a Vampiric Touch or a Shadow Word Pain if it lives long enough to get value out of it. Now the value from Shadow Word Pain doesn't just come from the dots of damage, as it also buffs Mind Flay damage by 20% and Mind Blast by 10%. On our first kill, I was only able to do 18,000 damage to the Nether portal, so I don't think the global cooldown that I used on Shadow Word Pain was worth it here. The Nether portal is going to spawn Mistresses of Pain. Now these are good and bad for your damage, because the more that there are, the more you can multi-dot, which allows you to take advantage of your dots ticking while you're single targeting Jaraxxus. But it's bad because it's an increased chance that you will get silenced by Mistress's Kiss. Now you want to make sure that your paladins are tracking the cast bar of the mistresses so that if they do cast Mistress's Kiss, they can use an AM paired with Concentration Aura. This means that when the kiss goes out onto the targets, even if it says you're interrupted, you will not get interrupted and you won't get silenced the way it normally would. Now on these adds, you want to apply Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, and then full single target Jaraxxus. It's very similar to the snowballs, so make sure that you reapply Vampiric Touch if it falls off, and make sure you maintain Shadow Word Pain with a 2-tick Mind Flay. Now the volcano is going to be the same thing as the Nether portal. Does it live long enough to justify you putting up both of your dots? If it doesn't, then just go for a Vampiric Touch and go into your single target rotation. Otherwise, make sure you get Shadow Word Pain up and then go into your single target rotation. Now the Infernals have a lot less health than the Mistresses of Pain, but you're definitely going to get more of them. What I like to do is put up a single Vampiric Touch onto all of them and go back to single targeting Jaraxxus. Make sure while you're Vampiric touching them that your dots don't fall off of Jaraxxus as well. You need to make sure that you're maintaining all of your dots all of the time. Now, if you see that your Vampiric Touches are falling off the Infernals and they still have half their health or more, you should definitely reapply Vampiric Touch. It's again the game of, if this lives long enough, is it worth applying the dot? And if they have half their health left and your dot fell off, it's probably worth reapplying Vampiric Touch. And that's the fight for Jaraxxus. Now the one quick thing I'll say about faction champions is that just Vampiric Touch everything if you're trying to maximize your damage. Now this might be different than what your guild strategy is. Some guilds will either choose for we're gonna single target this target down and then this next target and then this next target, or we're gonna single target some of the healers and then we're just gonna mass AoE everything. If you want to maximize your damage, then just cast Vampiric Touch on every single thing that you can. And then after you do that, make sure you have Devouring Plague up and then maybe even some Shadow Word Pains if you have the global cooldowns for it. All right, now let's talk about Twin Valks. Twin Valks is a lot of fun and we're gonna do some snapshot shenanigans. So the thing here that if you're not aware of that you can do is whatever aura you select, you're gonna deal 50% increased damage to the opposite target. So like if you get the light aura here, you'll do 50% increased damage to Darkbane, but you'll do 50% less damage to Lightbane. Now, what you can do here is if you would normally start with the Dark Aura, you can start with the Light Aura, cast a Shadow Word Pain onto Darkbane, swap to the Dark Aura, and then continue single targeting onto Light Bane while maintaining that Shadow Word Pain on Dark Bane. Now, if you followed that, essentially what it means is you just put up Shadow Word Pain onto the twin that you're not going to be attacking, and then you swap colors, and then you go attack the other one. If you do this correctly, that other Shadow Word Pain will give you about 1,000 extra DPS throughout the course of the fight. Now, you want to refresh it, but we're not going to be refreshing with a 2-tick Mind Flay. Instead, we're going to do a 1.5-tick Mind Flay, or essentially, you cast Mind Flay onto that other Val'kyr, you immediately target the other one and try to cast your next spell. What you're doing is you're queuing a spell. Now, you normally can't do this with Mind Flay because anytime you press your next spell, it automatically cancels. But because of the global cooldown, you can't cancel Mind Flay with another spell until halfway through its cast. And because we're doing 50% reduced damage to this other Val'kyr through Mind Flay, we don't care about getting that second tick like we normally would. So we just want to cancel this spell immediately and move on to casting something else onto our main target. So what this normally looks like for me is I will cast Mind Flay onto the off target to refresh Shadow Word Pain, immediately retarget the other Val'kyr, the one that I'm maintaining my single target on, and just start spamming the Mind Flay button so that I will cast it as soon as I am able to. This way you lose minimal time refreshing your dot, but you are maintaining it, and you go back to attacking your other target immediately. Now, this can be tricky to optimize your globals in the first few seconds of the fight, so just take some practice with it. If you mess it up a time or two, it's not a big deal. I've totally had my Shadow Word Pain fallen off on my off target in the middle of a fight. It's going to happen, and sometimes you're just tunneling and you lose track of it, and it sucks, but it's something that you'll remember next time. But other than that, this is just a single target fight with maintaining Shadow Word Pain on the other target. Now, if you are in a group that swaps your aura colors, then you're going to be swapping your target as well. If that happens, then all you do is just maintain Shadow Word Pain on the other target, the one that was your previous main target, if that makes sense. So you just do the same thing. You start attacking your new target, you apply all your dots, get your single target up there, and then you just use a 1.5-tick Mind Flay onto your off target. All right, now let's talk Anub. So here, number one, we want to use the Glyph of Mindseer. This is going to allow us to Mindseer off of the ads, hit all of the other ads, and Anub himself. The goal here is to hit 4 targets with Mindseer. Preferably one of them should be a noob because that's going to help your guild, but if you want to be a parse monkey, then just Mindseer off of a noob and hit all of the ads. Now, when the ads are first running in, you should apply a Vampiric Touch before they get grouped up. When they get grouped up, it's more efficient damage-wise to Mindseer to make sure you're hitting 4 targets at once, but while they're running in, taking advantage of a single Vampiric Touch is crucial to parsing. Make sure while you're doing this, your dots do not fall off of a noob. It's the same thing that I've been talking about through this entire video. When you're tossing up multiple dots, you need to make sure your dots do not fall off of your main target. Once they are all gathered in, pick the ad that's closest to the center of a noob to Mindseer off of. This way we can hit the other 3 ads and a noob himself. Just rinse and repeat this for phase 1. Now note there is a damage cap for the amount of damage you can do to the ads. I think it's 800k, I could be wrong, but if you go over this, Warcraft logs will not count that damage. Now this will only happen if you only have like 2 or 3 people AoEing the ads, so it shouldn't ever be a problem, but I'm just putting it out there so that you know. In phase 2, your damage isn't tracked by Warcraft logs, so just do whatever you can to maximize your survivability. I would highly recommend using Disperse towards the end of this phase, just so that you can recover mana. Now we're going to go back into phase 1 after our phase 2 intermission ends, and it's the same thing. VT the ads as they run in, and then Mindseer off of an ad to hit the other 3 ads plus a noob. Once a noob goes below 30%, damage to ads is no longer tracked by Warcraft logs. So here you want to maximize your single target damage onto a noob. That is also really good for your guild because you want to kill a noob as fast as possible here. They might still want people to cleave. You should try to leave that to the melee and the classes that are really good at just passive cleaving ads, because for you to Mindseer off of an ad, you can still damage a noob, but it's a lot less damage than if you were to Mind Flay. So just try to take into account how much cleave damage your guild needs. Mindseering can help if you guys are slow to kill the ads. So I wouldn't tell you not to. I would just say to let the other classes do it first. And if you need more help, then you should Mindseer the ads too. Anyway, that's all for this video. If you like this content, please give me a like and subscribe as it helps me out a lot. And I would love to continue making guides for you beautiful people. Anyway, my name's Pantsphase and I'll see you in the next one.